She told me the exact moment she fell for him. It wasn't dinner. It wasn't a compliment. It wasn't even a kiss. It was a hug. A single hug that lasted maybe 15 seconds. And when I asked her what made it so different from every other hug she'd ever received, she said 5 words that honestly changed how I think about attraction forever. She said, "He hugged me on purpose." Now, as a woman who knows exactly what she meant by that, I'm about to break down the 4 things he did and why most men will never figure this out without help. Let me throw a number at you that should stop you in your tracks. According to research from Carnegie Mellon University, people who receive frequent, meaningful hugs are 40% more resistant to stress-related illness. 40%. A hug done properly literally strengthens the immune system. But here's what that same body of research reveals that almost nobody talks about. The quality of the hug matters far more than the frequency. 100 careless hugs do less for the human body and brain than one single hug delivered with intention and awareness. And yet, and this part genuinely baffles me, most men treat hugging a woman the same way they treat shaking hands with their accountant. Quick, mechanical, forgettable. Arms go up, arms come down, and it's over before her nervous system even had a chance to register that something pleasant was happening. It's the physical equivalent of someone starting to tell you an amazing story and then just walking away mid-sentence. Here's what I want you to understand before we go any further. A hug is not just a greeting. It's not just a goodbye. For women, a hug is information. It tells us things about you that your words never could. It tells us whether you're confident or nervous, whether you're present or distracted, whether you see us as someone special or just another person in your day. All of that gets communicated through your body in a matter of seconds. And most men are broadcasting the wrong message without even knowing it. Today, I'm going to hand you 4 specific techniques that transform an ordinary hug into something a woman physically cannot stop thinking about. And here's my promise. By the time we reach the 4th one, you'll understand why. So many women describe falling for someone and say things that sound completely irrational. Things such as, "I don't know, there was just something about him." That something isn't magic. It's not luck. It's biology combined with intention. And after today, you'll have both. But fair warning, the 3rd technique on this list, not the 4th, the 3rd, is the one that made me actually uncomfortable to share publicly, because it works on a level that most women aren't even consciously aware of. And once you understand it, you'll realize you've been missing the single easiest way to create physical and emotional connection with a woman. So stay with me all the way through, because that one in particular is a game cheer. Let's get into the first technique. Here's something funny. Ask any man how he approaches a hug, and he'll probably look at you confused. "I just hug her," right? That's the problem. There's no thought behind it. No architecture, no design, and women feel that absence of thought instantly. The first thing that separates an unforgettable hug from a forgettable one happens before a single body part makes contact. It's your approach speed. And specifically, it's about slowing down. Think about it this way. When someone rushes toward you, arms wide open, moving fast, what does your body instinctively do? It braces. Even if you know it's friendly, your nervous system registers rapid approach as something to prepare for, not something to melt into. There's a whole field of research on this called proxemics, the study of human spatial behavior, pioneered by anthropologist Edward T. Hall back in the 1960s. What Hall found is that the speed at which someone enters your personal space dramatically affects how safe or threatened you feel in their presence. So when a man rushes into a hug, he's accidentally triggering a micro stress response in her body. Her muscles tighten just slightly. Her breath catches for half a second. Her shoulders come up a fraction of an inch. None of this is conscious. None of it is dramatic, but it prevents her from fully relaxing into the contact, which means she never reaches the state where bonding hormones flow freely. Now, contrast that with a man who slows down as he approaches, who closes the distance with calm, deliberate movement, almost gravitational, not hesitant. There's a massive difference between slow and confident and slow and awkward. Confident slowness communicates control. It says, I'm not rushing because I don't need to. I know exactly what I'm doing. And that energy, women feel it in their entire body. I had a conversation with a woman named Daniela, early 30s, very analytical, the kind of person who doesn't get swept up easily. She described a moment with a man she'd been casually seeing where he walked toward her for a hug. And her words, it felt gravitational. She said everything around them seemed to quiet down. She said her body started leaning toward him before she made a conscious decision to move. That's what controlled approach speed does. It creates a pull rather than a push. And here's the neurological piece that makes this click. Dr. Stephen Porges, who developed the polyvagal theory, has shown that when the human nervous system detects calm, non-threatening social engagement, it activates what he calls the ventral vagal state. This is the state of safety and connection. It's the state where a woman's body opens up. Her heart rate settles, her muscles soften, her facial expressions warm. You cannot generate desire in a woman whose nervous system is in defense mode. Slow approach speed is your entry ticket to her ventral vagal state. So that's technique 1. Slow your approach. Move toward her with purpose and calm. Let the gap between you close gradually. Make the hug feel inevitable rather than sudden. But what happens once you arrive? That's where the second technique becomes critical. And honestly, this one is where 90% of men go completely off the rails. Most hugs between a man and a woman follow an identical, boring, utterly predictable pattern. Both people wrap their arms around each other at roughly the same height, apply roughly the same pressure, and create what I call the mirror hold. Symmetrical, balanced, and completely devoid of sexual tension. Here's why. Symmetry kills attraction in a hug. Symmetry signals equality, friendship, siblinghood. It's the hug you give your cousin. It's the hug two coworkers exchange at a retirement party. There's nothing wrong with it, but it generates zero desire because there's no polarity, no contrast, no dynamic tension between masculine and feminine energy. The fix is what I call the asymmetric hold. And it works because it creates a physical dynamic where one person is clearly holding and the other is clearly being held. Here's what that looks and feels in practice. Instead of wrapping both arms around her at the same level, place one arm high around her upper back near her shoulders and the other arm low, wrapping around her waist or the lower part of her back. This creates an enveloping sensation. She's not being hugged at one level. She's being gathered, contained. And before you misunderstand me, this isn't about dominance or force. It's about creating a physical shape that makes her feel fully surrounded by your presence. Why does this matter so much? Because research published in the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology, yes, that's a real word, and yes, I had to practice saying it, found that the way a hug is structured physically affects the hormonal response it produces. Enveloping full contact hugs produce significantly higher oxytocin release than partial contact or same-level hugs. The researchers described it as the difference between a hand resting on a surface and a hand being held. Same touch, radically different emotional impact. There's also a psychological component here that's worth mentioning. When you hold a woman with one arm high and one arm low, you're subtly communicating something about your role in that moment. You're the anchor, the steady point, the structure she can lean into. And on a deeply instinctive level, that combination of physical security and asymmetric positioning triggers attraction responses that a symmetrical buddy-style hug simply cannot produce. A friend of mine, Marcus, the most clueless romantic you've ever met, accidentally stumbled onto this technique. He's tall, so whenever he hugged his date, one arm naturally ended up around her shoulders and the other around her waist, just because of the height difference. His dates kept telling him he gave the best hugs. He thought it was because he was warm. No, Marcus. It was geometry. Your body was creating an asymmetric hold without you even knowing it. And now you, whoever is watching this, can create that same effect on purpose, regardless of your height. Now, we've covered approach speed and the asymmetric hold. The third technique is the one I mentioned at the beginning, the one that made me hesitate before including it because this isn't just about what your body does, it's about what your breath does. And the science behind it is almost unsettling in how effective it is. Here's a question. Have you ever been near someone, not touching them, just near them, and felt an instant sense of calm? Or the opposite, an instant sense of tension? That wasn't your intuition being mystical. That was your nervous system reading their breathing pattern and adjusting yours accordingly. Humans co-regulate constantly. We match the physiological states of people we're in close proximity to, and the primary vehicle for this matching is breath. A study from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences tracked couples during physical contact and found that their respiratory rhythms synchronized within 10 to 15 seconds, and the partner with the slower, steadier breathing pattern was consistently the one who led the synchronization. The other person's body followed. So, here's the technique. When you're holding a woman in a hug, take one slow, audible exhale. Not a sigh, not a dramatic gust of air, a calm, steady exhale through your nose or slightly parted lips. The kind of exhale that says, I'm exactly where I want to be right now. That single exhale does three things simultaneously. First, it slows your own heart rate, which means your body becomes a source of calm that her body will instinctively mirror. Second, she can feel your chest and abdomen move with that exhale, which is a form of subtle physical communication. Your body is telling hers, this is good. Third, and this is the part that gets wild, that exhale carries your scent directly to her. Now, scent processing in the human brain bypasses the thalamus, the relay station that most sensory information passes through, and goes straight to the limbic system. That's the emotional core of the brain, the amygdala, the hippocampus, the regions that handle emotion and memory formation. So your scent isn't being analyzed logically, it's being experienced emotionally, and it's being locked into memory with whatever emotions she's feeling in that exact moment. If she's feeling safe, warm, held, and connected, all things the previous two techniques have been building, then your scent gets filed in her brain under those exact emotions. And days or weeks later, when she catches a trace of that scent on a jacket or in a room, those feelings come flooding back without any conscious effort on her part. She won't think, oh, that's his cologne. She'll feel a wave of warmth and longing and have no idea why. This is why I said this technique borders on unfair. You're not just creating a nice moment, you're anchoring yourself into her emotional memory through a neurological pathway she has zero conscious control over. I spoke with a woman, let's call her Grace, who told me that months after things ended with a particular man, she walked past a stranger on the street who wore the same scent. She said her eyes actually watered, not from sadness, from the sheer intensity of the emotional memory that hit her body. She said it was a full body feeling, not a thought. That's the exhale anchor in action. That's what you're building. And the wild part? Most men are holding their breath during a hug because they're nervous. They're literally doing the opposite of what works. They're tightening up, breathing shallow, communicating tension, and then wondering why she seems stiff and pulled away quickly. She pulled away because your body told her body that something was wrong. One slow exhale fixes that entire dynamic. One breath. All right, now the fourth and final technique. And if the first three were about building desire during the hug, this last one is about making that desire linger long after the hug ends. This is where a good hug becomes an unforgettable one. Here's something almost no man thinks about. Who ends the hug? In most interactions, the man pulls away first. Sometimes after 2 seconds, sometimes after 3, almost always before the woman was ready for it to end. And every time he pulls away first, he sends a subtle but unmistakable signal. I've had enough. That signal, however unintentional, creates a micro-rejection. Her arms are still engaged, her body is still in bonding mode, and suddenly the warmth is gone. It's the physical equivalent of someone hanging up the phone while you're mid-sentence. It doesn't hurt exactly, but it leaves you feeling incomplete, unsatisfied, and not in the good way. The fourth technique is devastatingly simple. Don't be the one who ends the hug. Hold on for one beat, just one, longer than she expects. Let her be the one to initiate the pull away, and when she does start to separate, release slowly. Don't snap your arms back to your sides. Let your hands trail across her back. Her arms maybe brush against her hands as you fully separate. Why is this so powerful? 2 reasons. The first is psychological. When you hold on slightly longer than expected, you communicate that being close to her is something you're in no rush to end. That's enormously attractive. It tells her she's not just another person you hugged out of social obligation. She's someone whose closeness you actually enjoy. In a world where most people are constantly rushing to the next thing, being the man who lingers, who savors, is magnetic. The second reason is neurological, and it connects back to something called the Zeigarnik effect. Bluma Zeigarnik, a Soviet psychologist, discovered in the 1920s that people remember incomplete tasks and unfinished experiences far more vividly than completed ones. It's why you can't stop thinking about a TV show that ended on a cliffhanger. It's why an unfinished song stuck in your head is 10 times more annoying than one you heard all the way through. When you let the hug end gradually with trailing touch and unhurried separation, you're creating a sensory experience that feels not quite finished. It lingers. There's a residue of warmth on her skin, a ghost of pressure where your hands were. And her brain, following the Zeigarnik effect, keeps returning to that unfinished sensation. She replays it. She tries to complete the experience in her mind, and in doing so, she thinks about you again and again, without deciding to. A behavioral psychologist named Dr. Art Markman has written about how these unresolved physical experiences create what he calls cognitive stickiness, a tendency for the mind to keep circling back to a moment that felt meaningful but didn't reach a clear conclusion. That's exactly what the delayed separation creates. Cognitive stickiness. You become the thought she can't quite shake. I know a woman who described this perfectly. She said, "When he finally let go, it felt premature, even though we'd been hugging for a while. And I spent the entire drive home wishing I could rewind to that moment. She didn't say he was the most attractive man she'd met. She didn't mention his career or his car. She mentioned how it felt when the hug ended. That was the thing that stayed with her. And that's the thing about desire. It doesn't live in the moment of contact. It lives in the space right after, in the echo, in the absence that follows presence. The delayed separation turns a hug into something with an afterlife, something that keeps breathing even after it's over. So here's what you now have: 4 techniques that transform something every man does on autopilot into something that rewires how a woman feels about you. The gravity pull, slowing your approach so her nervous system opens instead of braces. The asymmetric hold, creating physical polarity that triggers hormonal bonding responses. The exhale anchor, using a single breath to sync her body to yours and embed yourself in her emotional memory. And the delayed separation, ending the hug in a way that makes her mind keep returning to you long after you've gone. None of these require a gym membership. None require money. None require you to memorize clever lines or pretend to be someone you're not. They require one thing only: the willingness to be intentional in a moment that every other man rushes through. And that's actually the real takeaway here, beyond hugging technique. The men who create genuine desire in women aren't the ones with the best genetics or the biggest paychecks. They're the ones who treat small moments as if they matter. Because women notice. We always notice. The question is whether what we notice makes us want to come closer or gives us nothing worth remembering. Now you have the tools to be the man worth remembering. Use them wisely. And before you go, there's a piece of this puzzle you're still missing. Everything I just taught you works incredibly well when a woman is already open to your presence. But what happens when a woman is starving for physical connection and you don't even realize it? Because here's the truth. When a woman hasn't been intimate with someone in a long time, she starts doing very specific, very telling things to signal that she's available. And these signals are everywhere, in how she stands near you, in what she says, in the seemingly random ways she touches you during conversation. Most men walk right past all of it completely blind. I broke all of this down in a video that honestly might be the most important thing you watch this month. It's called "When a Woman Hasn't Been Intimate in a Long Time, She Does This to Get Your Attention." Think about it. What good is a perfect hug if you can't even recognize the woman who's been hoping you'd give her one? That video gives you the ability to read those signals in real time. And once you can do that while using the 4 techniques from today, you become the kind of man women talk about to their friends at brunch. The kind of man they can't figure out, but can't stop wanting to be around. That video is on your screen right now. Tap it, watch it, and thank me.